welcome again, our listeners. This is Shreya this side, and thank you so much for tuning in, guys. So, a little background about myself. I am Shreya Srivastav, and I'll be the host for the podcast. And I currently work as a customer success manager with WhatFix. We have Katie on the call today. She is supremely talented, and I'm pretty sure you'll get to know a lot about her as we proceed. I would like to hand over it to you, Katie, not to, just to break the ice, and if you can help with your quick introduction to our audience. So, yeah, over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, just thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate that. Just to give you a little bit of a background on me, I've had a really long career in learning and development. I would say, gosh, over 20 years, and that's really showing my age, right? I've been leading, and most of the time I've been transforming learning and development globally across, very large technology organizations, Cisco Systems being one of the first organizations that I worked for. But what I'm doing now is I'm now committed to helping organizations develop learning strategies, initiatives, and programs to drive engagement and performance through my consulting and coaching organization called Purple Nix. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you so much, Katie, for your introduction. I know there is a lot more that we'll get to know as we proceed in the show. So just setting up the pace, let's start with some basic questions, and I have some exciting questions for you. So I hope you are all good and ready to answer.
Yep. Far away.
Okay. So my first question that I have for you is, so how did you start your career in such a diverse domain, right, as that of a learning? And what was the motivation for you? Because learning is something which is really extended. So I'm always curious when I find someone who's very much into learning. So how did it happen?
I think if you ask many learning and development practitioners today, they won't say that they actively searched out a role in learning and development. I mean, I didn't wake up one day and say, I want to work in learning. Most just kind of fall into it, and most stay in it because of their love of learning, just like I did. I mean, I was actually a TEFL teacher before I actually started my career in learning and development. And so I used to teach English to foreign students. And I guess that kind of started me off on this whole education learning route. But I guess if I really kind of pinpoint it, it was my curiosity in technology that started this all off. Right. And I was really, really lucky to get my first real learning and development role at my very first technology company, Cisco Systems. And that started it all off for me. I mean, I was supporting learning on technical enablement. So, security training and voice training. And my passion for learning and development just grew from there. However, what I must say, Shreya, is if it was not for the great managers that I also had at that very early part of my career, I may have taken a very different career route. I probably wouldn't be talking to you today, right? And I was really, really lucky because as I became more proficient in one area, I was able to expand in other areas. And the managers that I had also gave me the opportunity to diversify across sales, training and product training and service training. And then I moved into management and leadership, which I thoroughly enjoy as I can then develop and grow my team and actually, grow them in their career. I guess I have done every single role in learning and development today. Every single one. I started on the very operational side of learning, but I've done every single role. And so I was able to really understand the language and also the challenges that my teams had and teams have today, which I think is so, so important. So I think, I think just my love of technology and having great managers have, really helped me to have the career that I have today.
You spoke really well because I think, being said that you were a teacher earlier. So
yes.
A lot of patience comes in from there. And like you rightly mentioned, it really depends on the kind of manager you would have got early in your career. I think there is always a learning, be it a good or a bad. So I also feel, I'm fortunate enough in the start of my career, I've got to work with people who really understand me and they help me find what's the right thing for me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I have another question for you. So, who is that one person from L&D space who has inspired you? And what is that one learning you would like to share with the listeners for the person who has inspired you? Because I'm pretty sure in such a long career, there must be someone whom you must be looking up to.
Oh gosh, I've had such a long career in learning and development. Let me think. I don't think I look up to any one person specifically within the learning and development space. And as I mentioned, if it was not for the managers that I had, I may not be talking to you today. But if I go back to the very early part of my career, there was one manager I did have who kind of helped me see past the challenges that I had in actually, having to raise a young family, having to juggle that, and also having to want to progress in a career that I really enjoyed and I loved. And it was such a struggle, Shreya, that I was ready to take a break from my job, and I was ready to be a full-time mum, right? But this manager, he actually worked through a flexible working arrangement for me, and he made me having a career in learning and development really attainable for me. He would not let me give up. I think if I think about it, he was the proponent of female work-life balance way back then. I mean, we're talking about work-life balance now, but he was proponent, 15 years ago, right? And I think, having a manager like that who actually demonstrated empathy and kind of understood me and the challenges that I was having, he just made me even more motivated. And I think that he has inspired me to be the manager that I am today. And I truly thank him for that. Truly thank him for that. And I guess, just to answer your second question, Shreya, that one learning that I want to share with everyone is be a lifelong learner, right? Be curious. Ask those questions that nobody else wants to ask, right? Ask those questions that people are scared in asking.
Yeah.
Dig really deep to really understand and appreciate perspectives as well. And as learning and development professionals, it's really important to kind of put yourself into the seat of the learner and ask those questions and understand the challenges that they have every day. I doubt the challenges they have every day is linked to them having to take a training course or something like that, right? Yeah. I mean, it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot having a manager like that right from the very beginning of my career.
Actually, I was just going to ask that, and you brought that up, 15 years back, I think things changed post-COVID, when you would get certain flexibility of working.
Yeah.
Or, if you're like a parent, there would be a lot many changes that, we started bringing up after COVID. But when you say like 15 years back, what was your reaction? How did the people around you react, when the manager gave you that flexibility of working, the way you want to? So what was the reaction back then?
Gosh, I think I was shocked more than anything else. I mean, I walked into my manager's office with my resignation in my hand, with a very sad face, and I was shocked that he would just turn around and say, "Sit down, let's talk through this. Let's find a solution. I don't want to lose you," right? I felt so valued. I just felt that there was somebody here who was that proponent of allowing women to have a career, right? I mean, I guess I was very lucky in my career to be able to work for organizations that did allow a little bit of flexibility when it came to that kind of work-life balance. I was very lucky. So yeah, I mean, I think for me it was shock more than anything else. Yeah. But then it was relief, right? And then it was joy, right? So yeah, I mean, we are just talking about all of this work-life balance now, but it was happening in organizations way back, right? But it just wasn't something big and something that we needed to focus on. So yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, just very, very lucky. And it has made me the manager that I am today.
Absolutely. And one thing you rightly mentioned, the curiosity. I think the curiosity should never die. We should always be curious to learn something at every phase of life, because learning is like I think you could answer that better. Learning is like forever thing. It never
Absolutely.
stops. And the learning never stops if you're always curious to learn more. So I think a very good learning that you have shared, and I'm pretty sure our listeners would definitely relate to it and would implement in their real lives as well.
Yeah, I was always that, at the very early part of my career, and even in the last kind of, 5, 6 years, I was one of those people that would be, I didn't want to put my hand up, right, to ask a question, right, in case somebody laughed at me or somebody thought it was stupid, right? But I can guarantee you that is the question that everybody else wants to ask, right? But they don't have the confidence to ask it. So,
really relatable.
So I just say to my teams, and I've trained myself to think like this, is ask that question, all right? Don't worry, ask the question. You will learn. You will learn from that.
Absolutely. And the learning that you're sharing right now, right? Like, we should never hesitate away from asking question. I think that has always been like a key for me. There would be 100 of people, 100 of judgments. It is always you who need to find way for yourself what you need to do in life and career. If you're going to get affected by what the next person is saying about you, and it can be a good question like what you ask. So we should, never fear from asking what's there in mind. So cannot agree more on that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so moving on. So now you have managed many teams in your career globally. What was a key consideration when you managed them? And I know you have managed a lot of people.
Yes, big teams. I think, first of all, I want to say being a manager and being a leader is really, really hard work. It's really, really hard work. It's even harder when you have to manage global teams. Global teams are remote across multiple time zones. And for me, because of that, I think one of the really important pieces was to be culturally aware, right? Be culturally aware, be time zone sensitive. And, to many people, it may seem like a simple thing, but scheduling meetings on country holidays or cultural days, or scheduling meetings early morning or late at night without thought or permission, right? Permission. It sends out mixed messages to your team or your team member. It's your job as their manager to manage this. And as part of this, and I've learned this through my career, language and interpretation is another consideration, which the whole team has to be aware of. Sometimes someone says a phrase, right? Or they say a word, and it's just interpreted the wrong way. And there's confusion over it. But we will laugh about it and we'll explain it and we'll learn from it as well. So really, really important to have that cultural sensitivity. For me also, and I know this is such a big thing that we talk about, it's the whole piece around work-life balance and mental well-being, right? Mental well-being for my team is such a big consideration. I expect my team to take breaks. I expect them to go for a walk, right? I expect them to have lunch. A burnt-out team is not a productive team, and then performance suffers. And then when performance suffers, you kind of go down that route of, having those really challenging talks. And, that is even more important working in a global environment where hours don't always start at 9 and finish at 5:30, just due to the nature of the business. So, those two pieces were really, really important for me. And then, as a manager, if you can get them right, you can get your team synergy right. Okay. I mean, I've worked in teams where there was a lack of balance, or there was, quite honestly, just a lack of respect for each other as well, right? You can't work in an environment like that. You can't be productive in an environment like that as well. You have to, as a manager, build those strong, effective teams, and that means teams that actually want to work with each other, right? So those are all kind of key considerations that I've had to learn, right, throughout my career. for me, it's just about having happier, healthier, and productive teams, which is absolutely critical.
That sounds so good to me, when you talk this as a manager, like how important it is to, take care of the mental well-being of your team members. Because I feel still we are, yet to improve in that aspect, because at times we don't realize what the other person would be thinking, what's going in the mind. So if they're not really well at a personal level or, at a mental well-being, I always wonder how productive they would be at work. So that's one thing that I always feel like, and it is something I've also implemented in my life that I would share at a personal level with my managers, because if I am free altogether from my mind, that's when I would be the most productive. So very nice point kind of brought, and that definitely talks about your experience that you have really managed a lot of people for sure.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure actually in managing teams on so many different continents, Australia and America and India and Latin America as well. So and Europe, obviously. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine, all of those different cultures, all of those different events and language, that as a manager, you do need to be mindful of, but it's so exciting to be working in a team like that. You can just learn so much from each other.
Absolutely. So what was a key focus area you always had an eye on? That's like a bullseye you always kind of focused.
Yeah. Do you know what? I'm a little bit of a data geek. Right. From a learning and development perspective, data was and still is kind of king for me, right? Mm-hmm. I love data. I absolutely love it. To me, data is power.
Yeah, agree.
And just having those data-driven insights, what it means for a learning and development team is what it kind of tells us is that we know what we need to go after and what we need to develop and who we need to develop for and why. We know how well we're supporting and improving the skills of the organization and ultimately the performance of the organization, right? Mm-hmm. I think what the whole data piece has also given me and my teams is it helps us to become a lot more confident when we talk to the business. So then we're starting to talk the language that the business will want to sit up and listen to. Things like adoption levels and call resolution data and engagement data and time to first project, productivity, retention. These are the things that the business is going to want to invest in, right? Mm. And so as a manager, and I think some of my teams and some of my team members probably just got really frustrated with me. I would always be asking, well, how will we know the business impact? Show me why we need to focus on this learning intervention, right? Show me what value we've added. Really, really frustrating when I'm always asking those questions, right? But most of the time, learning teams will have to partner with the business to get the right data, so that we can create this picture for us as a learning and development organization. I think, for example, many product teams will be able to share back-end performance data, right, on how employees are engaging on products and tools and where they may have the biggest challenges, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really kind of digging deep and understanding what data is going to make us more powerful as a learning organization. I could spend, there's been many a time where I've kind of spent days and days just going through data, just to help us understand impact and trends and all of that lovely stuff that is part of our role, So data is king.
I'm actually loving this conversation and the point you brought, right? Like on data. I think we are also from customer success team and all that works is data. So, what have we helped actually customers? So it's you actually in this case where I'm working currently in Botfix. It would be someone from the L&D team whom I would be helping out with that data and analytics, of course. So I also truly believe in data because when you have data, you definitely have a very solid point to put across. And it definitely makes sense to the other person who is trying to comprehend what you're communicating. So that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what else, Shreya? Mm-hmm. I was able to actually get more budget, right, when you've got data, and when you can prove something and you can prove that you need to invest in something with that data, I can get more budget. I can get more resources, right? So yeah, I mean, data is absolutely powerful and king. It's just knowing what the right data is, right? Yeah.
I think we can go on and on talking about data and emphasize.
We can. I'm a data geek. I'm a data geek.
Okay, and you brought one point, right? Like you can get certain budget approved. So, okay, now as you hail from L&D team and also pretty much aware about the DAP or a digital adoption platform. So, what do you feel would be your top 3 objectives that you would like to share across with the audience? And I'm sure this time you're going to have some budget for DAP as well.
Oh gosh, I think there's so many of them. Let me just think. I think firstly, I think learning and development teams just need to agree that I think employees and managers' first priority is to deliver effectively on their job and role. It's not to take training, right? It's just not. So for me, time to effective competence and performance is absolutely crucial for learning and development teams. So that really, for example, the business can deliver quicker and they can make positive impact quicker. They have employees who can take on projects quicker. For example, you just spoke about the whole kind of service help desk side of things. So, for example, if a service help desk team does not have access to the right information or knowledge, this will have an impact on the quality of the support they provide to customers, right? In turn, it will impact NPS and customer loyalty, and that will suffer, which no company wants. And so learning and development teams need to really, really think about what is needed for effective competence, what is needed for that shorter time to effective competence and performance. Right. And they're not going to get that by delivering great big long training classes. Right. So they have to think differently. Secondly, work is becoming so much more faster and so much more virtual, right? With that, learning needs to be the least disruptive to an already busy day, right? Mm-hmm. Learning teams should be looking to see how we can embed learning into the flow of work to help performance on the job. So it could be things like embedded tips, guides, mini demonstrations, podcasts, right? Videos, coaching, right? Mm-hmm. And a key consideration is also to look at how easy it is for our employees to actually access this content. And whilst learning management systems are still pretty much here, right? And I don't think they're going to go away very soon. They may not be the best and easiest option for employees to access actually what they need to drive their performance. Mm-hmm. So kind of partnering with IT teams and product teams is really, really important so that the learning teams can actually start to embed learning in the right portals and tools, and also, thinking about performance tools as well, like WhatFit can really, really help in this as well. Yeah. And then I think I might have mentioned this earlier, Shreya. I think thirdly, learning and development teams need to solve and close the right learning and performance needs, right? Yep. So how do they do this? They do this by understanding the ongoing challenges and issues employees in the business is having, which impacts business performance. If they can work from that, they can actually do anything, right? Yeah. And then obviously, they have to upskill to become more data savvy and to identify, the right data and the right metrics that really matter, which is impacting performance to help improve performance. So, those 3 things are really, really important for teams today. And, it's just, and I hear it all the time, that sentence that the business has, which is, we don't have enough time to learn. We don't have time to, take the organization out for a half a day training course or even a couple of hours. Right. So learning teams have to adapt, right? They have to find other solutions to help the organization.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, right, like how WhatFix would be able to help. And you did mention about certain tips or videos. So it's very true, right? We cannot depend on one way of learning. So we need to move forward? What is like the best thing we can do? And we need to be smart enough to showcase rather to make the employer, anyone rather, learn something new, but not with a traditional way that we would have followed earlier. So
Yeah,
it's all about
I agree.
growing and how we can learn with the different kind of content which is there, not just like a classroom training where we have like 10 people, and it becomes so monotonous in today's world, if you see. And this brings me up to like another question which is very much related. So what is the difference of approach that you see in classroom training? That's something that you brought up, and the digital training as you've been closely involved in the process. So, in fact, I have to ask you about what blended learning means to you, because you brought that up earlier as well, and you've
Yeah.
always emphasized how important it is. So, how do you think it is like beneficial for a long-term success for any organization?
Oh gosh, there's a lot of questions in there. Let me break them down.
Absolutely.
I think it's a little bit. I think it's a little more complex than just digital and classroom-based learning. Mm-hmm. When we think digital, and I'm sure you think this, or you have thought this, Shreya, we think pretty much of a e-learning course or an online pathway, or even compliance training, right?
Yeah.
Digital learning is pretty much thought of as kind of linear or path-based. It can even be thought of as less flexible, right?
Yeah.
But it's much, much more if it's done right. Okay. Mm-hmm. So to me, the whole concept of digital learning is delivered by technology, right? It can be a course, it can be an interactive PDF, video, business simulation, podcast, an online social forum, right? Mm-hmm. For me and my teams, it was really around making use of technology from a development or accessibility viewpoint, right? Maybe from a platform or a knowledge hub, or a specific product, right? So digital learning can really enable that quicker integration into work, and it can be modular, so it provides more choice. It can be a time saver. What I've implemented in previous organizations is just implementing these mini kind of videos and podcasts, and basically enabling the organization to actually, take a 3-minute podcast whilst you're out for a run or a walk, right? Or watch something where, when you're on the train. So, there is all of that kind of that kind of interactivity into your normal day with the digital side of things. And, if I think about classroom learning can also make use of technology, but it's typically delivered live, right? And I think typically it takes the learner out of their working day, which is not ideal for any business. Mm-hmm. And then when we start to talk about blended learning, this whole piece comes alive, right? It also includes digital, but it uses many, many other delivery formats. If we think about how people really, really learn, blended learning pretty much covers the focus on how we learn effectively. We learn effectively through a mix of education and exposure and experience, right? It brings other learning mediums into the mix. It brings mediums like social collaboration, Q&A forums, virtual classrooms, mentoring, coaching, on-the-job learning, stretch projects, right? Yeah. So, bringing these all together into a blended learning environment is hugely beneficial to organizations and business. This approach really helps organizations kind of integrate learning just in the normal flow of work. And what it also does, it also helps the business and managers and employees to start owning their own development as well, right? Yeah. So, it's really, really evolving. The whole blended learning side of things. But, as I think about this as well, I'm also thinking that learning and development teams need to start to adapt their learning approach as well to the rhythm of the organization. So with this whole blended learning approach and partnering with the business and embedding learning in the flow of work. I think long gone is that traditional role of trainer and instructional designer, right? Yeah. We now have learning technologists, right? Because technology is just so key. We have data analysts, we have communications campaigners and performance consultants, user experience individuals. I think with the whole advent of blended learning, a career in learning and development has never been so exciting. Well, that's what I tell myself anyway. So yeah, hopefully that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of my approach to blended learning, and how blended learning can really support the business as they kind of go about their day-to-day work.
No, that was really a great insight shared, Kitty. So I think we were supposed to kind of talk about 3 ways to create performance-driven cultures through transformational learning and strategies. But I think I have discussed a lot. We have discussed a lot, many points today for our listeners. And I heard that you like writing. Okay, I'm pretty sure you like writing. Okay. Now, can you share anything on the recent book you are writing? If you can disclose that to our audience, and I just hope that the first copy is reserved for me because I have been a good student.
You've been a very, very good student, Shreya. Very, very good. I will sign it personally when it's released for you. Right?
Thank you so much.
Right now, it's a little bit under wraps. Right now, my book, but let's just say it's a very, very dark, semi-dystopian fiction book, and it's kind of set in this closed-off town to society that you only get invited into, right? And it kind of brings up all of these social issues that we don't like to talk about in society today, but we know is happening in society as well. So it's really, really dark. The whole writing piece, it allows me to escape into another world, and I let my creativity completely loose. And they do say that sometimes it's some of your unconscious thoughts coming to the surface, which I think, based on what I'm writing about, is actually scaring me of me, right? I'm scared of me right now. So yeah, it's a very, very dark fiction. It just, as I mentioned, it just lets me loose, and just lets me to escape into a completely another world, which is always great, right?
Yeah, and I don't want the suspense, to be kind of open. I want I want the audience to, kind of first read through the book that you've written. And also, I am just waiting for my first copy. So I won't ask a lot of questions there. I think it should be in the book itself that we should be figuring out what's there. So I would just keep it here and make our listeners curious to go forward and, kind of read what Katie wrote. So, yeah.
Good. Thank you so much for that, Shreya. As I mentioned, first copy will be over to you.
That's awesome.
You might not like it. You might not like it, Shreya, but
it's okay. I have learned a lot from you in today's call, and I think I might, kind of move in that direction. Maybe I start to like that as well, because there's something more than, learning what I felt as a CSM I have learned in today's call.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you.
Now we are moving to our final segment of the podcast, and that's our fans' favorite. Okay. So,
oh gosh.
And that is what we call as the rapid fire round. I'm pretty sure everyone knows about the rapid fire round, and it goes on and on. Now, so you can just brace yourself, because I have really interesting questions for you. Okay.
Now, I'm ready.
like we say, it's rapid and it should be full of fire. So here we go. As you have heritage in Goa, what would be the Goan food you would like to recommend to our listeners? And I can vouch on that there would be a lot of people who are either dying to go to Goa or always go to Goa. Okay, so there should be something you should recommend to our listeners.
I think prawn pickle. You don't normally get prawn pickle, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to recommend a prawn pickle. It's called prawn bao chow. It's spicy and rich. It's cooked in a really spicy masala, and I have it as a regular picnic dish with a warm, crusty baguette. Right, really, really unique prawn bao chow pickle. Right.
Nice. I heard about prawns and people love prawns when it comes to seafood, but prawn pickle
Yes.
is something really unique. Okay, now I looking at you and I'm pretty sure that you really take great care of yourself, your health. And it's obvious, okay? It's something that I complimented the first time I saw you. What are some of your health tips rather, that you would like to give to the audience? And for the people who don't know, maybe Katie, if you would like to kind of give a quick brief about the audience to the audience, and you have a couple of children, right? I was just shocked to know when you told the age, and I was like, okay, what are we doing to our life? And I want you to kind of share that to our audience.
Yeah, so I do have two children, right? I have a 24-year-old, and I have now a 20-year-old, right?
I can't believe it still. Okay, I'm still laughing.
As I said, Shreya, it may be the light, right? But I've got a few tips, really. I mean, firstly, I used to run quite a bit, but obviously as you get older, your joints are not as supple. So I walk, I try and walk as much as I can. Walk, try not to take the car everywhere. Walking is really great for your physical fitness. It's great for your mental fitness as well. You're out in the fresh air, go to a park, slow down your brain. Walking is great. And secondly, Shreya, eat your vegetables. Eat your vegetables, all right? If you don't like vegetables, find a recipe or a way of cooking that makes you enjoy them. All of those vitamins are really, really good for your bones and your skin and, and all of that lovely stuff. So those are really kind of the two things that I've just continued doing. And I love vegetables as well. Love them.
That's great. Even I love vegetables, but when I stay with my family, it's automatic that you would get all those kind of pौष्टिक food. But when you are staying alone, as a bachelor, I think I'm really lazy to kind of cook these vegetables. But when you say, right, it's really important. And walking is something that I have always done. Trust me, I really feel light whenever I walk. And it's like something we should be doing. My grandmother, at this age, she walks like 5 kilometers a day. And,
wow.
And when I share this with anyone, they just get surprised. They're like, how is that possible? I said, it's all about perseverance. It's all about, if you have a dedication to do something, you will actually do it. So we need to definitely take care of our health first. And I felt that there should be a pro tip that we can share from your side to the audience. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, I think it's really, really important just to go for that walk and just slow down your brain, right? Our life is so busy. Slow it down. Appreciate what's around you as well. Really, really important tip.
Absolutely. Okay, now there is one more pro tip I need from you for the people who want to pursue their career in writing. So what's a pro tip that you have for them?
I think for anyone who wants to go into writing, be an avid reader yourself, right? Try and read different genres. Try and read from different writers. You'll find different writing techniques. You'll find new vocabulary. You'll find new words. You'll find just new things that you might want to experiment with, right? When you start writing. Just explore. I mean, I have so many extensive range of books at home. It's just, I think, just read and soak. It will really help you in your writing when you get to your writing.
Absolutely. And for me, I always feel that it's very important. So to be a good writer, you rightly mentioned, it's very important to read first. it's not really about vocabulary most of the times, but then your concentration would really increase. So when you are writing, I always feel, you are able to get that concentration from one of the reading tips that you just gave.
So, absolutely. Yeah, read as many different types as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this actually brings us to the end of yet another episode of the Digital Adoption Show. Thank you so much, Katie, for doing it. It was amazing hosting you. We had a lot of conversations from training, from L&D and whatnot to the prawn pickles. So I just loved it. But
thank you so much.
But before we close, Katie, it would be awesome if you can share how the people listening to the podcast can reach out to you if they have any more questions. It can be work related, or it can be for some of the cooking tips as well, I believe. So I will pass it on to you, Katie, how you would like our audience to reach out to you.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, so I'm more than happy for anyone to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. I will, personally, make sure that I respond to everyone on that. And also, if people do want to kind of reach out and find out a little bit more about the consulting and the coaching that I do, they can contact me through my organization called Purple Nix. So yes, happy to talk to anyone and everyone, right?
Awesome. It's been a pleasure having you here, Katie. I cannot iterate that anymore. It was a lovely conversation that I had. And again, I would like to thank everyone listening to the podcast. And it is great to have you all here. And I'm sure you must have got to learn a lot from today's episode. So stay tuned to the Digital Adoption Show for more great content and some really incredible speakers like we had Katie today. So have a great one, everyone. And thank you so much, Katie, for joining.